An empty chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I gotta do the magic here behind the audio board with Ava at college. It's put us under some pressure.
Yeah, it's a definite different, because then it puts all the pressure back on Ella. And let's be honest.
Yeah.
She's a busy girl.
Yeah, she is.
Sometimes she's too busy for us.
She doesn't exactly have time for us all the time. And so we'll do this. Yeah, and as many of you know who listen to the show, I'm not the greatest puncher in the world here. So we're just going to see how this goes.
No, you do great. You do great. I have to make a little comment, though, right off the top. We're not going to have time for comments today because you've packed, we have stacked a full show, and so we want to get to it. But I did have to make a comment because one of the comments that came in off of our YouTube channel was they appreciate our show, a little less chit-chat, Mark.
Oh, a little less chit-chat.
A little less chit-chat.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, I'm offended by that comment, quite frankly. I mean, here's the thing. We're not a news show, so we're not going to, we both worked in news, and you're not allowed to say anything really in news, right? You have to just read the news.
Yeah.
I feel like you can get that anywhere.
Yeah.
But I feel like the joy of podcasts, the reason I listen to podcasts is for the commentary of what the hosts have to say. So I'm just thinking, if you want to just get the news, read the paper or watch whatever program you want. If you want some chit-chat, you go to a podcast.
Yeah, you get some chit-chat right here. We got a full bowl of chit-chat.
We get chit-chat. We have dogs howling. Our kids are part of the process. So, if that's not your game, well, I apologize. But, I don't see us changing anytime soon. So.
I'll tell you, you're right, though. We do have a packed show. There's no question about that. I'll just give you a couple of quick highlights here. There's a lot in this thing. But the National Guard is being sent to New Mexico. Thank you, Scott. The National Guard is being sent to New Mexico by Trump. So how is that going to go over? That is going to be very, very interesting. So we'll talk about what they may actually do when they're here. J.D. Vance was on Meet the Press this morning. Some interesting things from him. National Guard crackdown, and then a lot of this redistricting stuff and what's going on. It was interesting to hear his perspective on that.
Yeah, and some scary news with Newsom, honestly. I am not looking forward to sharing this content, but we got to do it.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting, actually. Gavin Newsom has surged ahead to be the Democratic nominee, way out, obviously, till 2028. But he is leaving everybody else in his wake, and he's doing it in a very specific way that may look familiar to people. And we've got a deep dive on that. Plus, look, the economy is an issue for Trump. It is. Prices are an issue. There's no question. If there's something that's going to derail this administration, it's going to be that. So we're going to continue. We've been talking about that a lot, and we've got some numbers in an article from the Wall Street Journal talking about that and some of the prices. And then we're also going to talk about some voter registration stuff. And in New Mexico, it is getting closer. There's no question. And a lot of people don't really realize how much closer things have gotten, even since we ran. Things are significantly closer as far as how many people identify with all the parties. And we will talk about those numbers getting closer and closer. We'll hit the Cracker Barrel thing real quick, but from a different perspective.
Right. A little bit of a stock issue. And just, the stock market game when it comes to some of these rebranding of these companies, how does it play into investors? So we need to talk about that.
Yep. And then CBS is been bought by Skydance, which is a new company, and it's owned by someone who I think has a lot less interest in being partisan, and that's David Ellison, who runs Skydance. Now, it's not that he's going and is going to be a producer at CBS and deciding all the stories and how they handle them, but the ownership group that owns CBS now, I think, has an opportunity to start to set CBS back into more of a honest broker on both sides. And I think you're seeing some little indications that may actually be happening. Southwest, they may end up flying overseas, meaning into Europe. We'll hit that.
I'm going to have some comments on that one.
And our guy, Zoran Mandani, the socialist candidate for mayor in New York, who is the favorite to be the next mayor of New York.
Hey, he's a new weightlifter, I hear.
Well, yeah. I mean, the guy has got some juice, right? I mean, so he got caught into something that candidates get caught into, okay? And that is doing something that is not in his wheelhouse.
Right.
And when that happens...
Working out.
Yes. And when that happens, it makes you look like a bit of a fool.
Okay.
And so we'll talk about that. And there is, believe me, I had someone suggest I get on a horse
I
once.
was going to say the whole thing for you is horseback riding.
Oh, there's no question. I cannot do it.
Let's not put Mark on a horse.
I look like
ever.
a fool. Yeah, it just doesn't work. I absolutely get it. So we're not here to laugh at his
I am.
lack of prowess in this particular situation. But we are here to point out that when you're a candidate, boy, don't do that. All right. And then we've got some great video of a mountain lion, and we've got a great video of a bear that came to visit us in Angel Fire. So we have all that stuff going. But first, the biggest story right now going out there, especially when you look at what's going on in the state of New Mexico, is the fact that we now have a situation where the National Guard is coming into New Mexico via the President of the United States, who says, wait a minute, we need some stuff going here. We need some help with the National Guard. Now, everybody talks about D.C. and what's happened to D.C., and we will get to that. That is not really what this is.
No, this is totally different. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the headline. It says Trump mobilizing up to 1,700 National Guard troops in 19 states to widen crime and immigration crackdown. So these deployments are going to 19 different states.
Right,
New Mexico just happens to be one of them.
Yep.
And here's a poll quote from it. It says, the troops who will largely be activated across Republican-controlled states will serve in support of the administration's Immigration and Customs Enforcement Operations, or ICE, as well as other law enforcement priorities, according to comment from unnamed Pentagon officials and documents obtained by Fox News.
Okay, but the one thing is, it says they're largely Republican states. We are clearly not.
No.
So if you're going into a Republican state, you're getting a lot of cooperation from the governor of that state.
Right. Texas, by the way, is getting one of the largest deployments of this. I guarantee you Abbott is down there saying, yeah, please come on. We'll take your support.
Right.
You know,
right.
absolutely.
But we don't fit into that category.
No. Clearly, we do not fit in that category.
Yes.
And honestly, what's interesting is we have been looking for any comment from anybody here in the state of New Mexico, whether it's a governor or, a mayor of some sort, anybody.
Yeah. So far, nothing.
Crickets. I'm not even seeing anything from media, really, except for a couple of conservative outlets. I'm not seeing any other coverage of this so far. So I'm wondering, are we going to see some more? Somebody going to talk about this, but we're obviously talking about it. So just what's interesting, though, is to note is these guys are not coming in as actual law enforcement officers. They're coming in as a support system for some of these command
for ICE,
centers.
right? I mean,
so
the
guardsmen will be serving under Title 32, Section 502F authority, in which they technically remain under state command and control, but they can assist with federal missions and are paid with federal funds. The status allows them to avoid running afoul of a federal law limiting military involvement in domestic law enforcement. So again, this is in a support fashion, running fingerprints or helping with paperwork, things of that nature, to alleviate some of the pressure at some of these detainment centers, is my understanding.
Right. And so the question then becomes, how does New Mexico react to this? You know, what happens when we see National Guardsmen activated from within the state, by the way? They're going to be people that live here. They go down to, say, Alamogordo, or they go down to Columbus, New Mexico, to help with some of what's going on with ICE enforcement and things like that. That's what's going to be interesting here. I am sure you're going to hear something from the governor on this very shortly. I don't think necessarily this is going to be an Albuquerque thing, but I don't know. You just don't know where it's going to be. But with the assistance of the National Guard already in Albuquerque for what the governor's already done, potentially in Espanola, although we're not hearing much at all about that.
Right. We're trying to dig into that a little bit more to see if that's actually happening. I mean, the rumor is the budget's been aligned for it, but again, we're just trying to figure this out and see like what actually is taking place.
Right. So if you're expecting to see a situation like you're seeing in D.C., where where they bring in the National Guard, try to do sweeps and get things cleaned up, you're not likely to see that here. This is all likely going to be centered around immigration enforcement here. But we don't know how it's going to shake out. And obviously, given the contentious history between the governor and the president, I don't know how this is going to shake out. It is interesting that we haven't heard anything. I am surprised at that. I'm surprised there haven't been statements. I'm sure there will be tomorrow, and we'll have to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. But what is working for DC is having the National Guard in DC. It's unbelievable the results that they're seeing in DC in such a short amount of time. I mean, I think they're on 10 days of this so far, seeing a massive decrease in crime. J.D. Vance was on the morning on Meet the Press this morning and really just gave a quick synopsis of what they're seeing so far in DC.
Crime has dropped over 35% in the nation's capital in 10 days because of what Donald J. Trump has done.
So is that mission accomplished?
I think that there's so much more that we could do. Absolutely not. It's not mission accomplished. When you make such big progress in a matter of a week and a half, I think that you step on the gas and try to make D.C. even more safe.
So that is interesting because what it tells you is that they are expanding some of these efforts because I think they feel like it's working. And I do think, despite all the other stuff going on, and we'll get into approval numbers and everything else, this is largely popular. It's largely popular with people that live in these cities where there is high crime, and there's some understanding or at least some willingness to admit that they're probably going to go into Chicago pretty quickly and try to deal with those issues. Chicago, very violent city, right? And so you start to see Vance say, wait a minute, let's keep going. Let's keep doing this. And this gets to where this administration is. They're all gas and no brake.
Right. Yeah. He says that, no, why would we slow down right now? There's talk about potentially arming these National Guard. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Right now, they're not armed as of the most recent report that I've read. What was interesting is I can't remember the dates, so pardon for that, but they said for the first time in several years, I want to say it's even over a decade, there was not a reported homicide.
In at least a week, right?
In at least a week.
Yeah.
Which is like history making in DC.
Right.
So clearly the people that are walking these streets, that live in these streets, whether or not they're publicly saying, hey, this is working, I guarantee you they're feeling safer on the streets. How can you not when you see a presence out there and just more eyeballs out there helping support those local police officers?
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, but it was not the only thing that Vance talked about. So he also talked about what's going on with this redistricting fight. And we've seen, a lot of it come home to New Mexico where we've seen our leaders stand up and say, oh, I can't believe they're doing this when they've already gerrymandered New Mexico, right?
A bunch of hypocritical comments.
It's crazy. And so, but one of the things people don't talk about enough is not the redistricting, because you have a lot of these states that have already been gerrymandered to the hilt. Like you can't gerrymander they're going to, obviously they're gerrymandering Texas a bit more. Illinois has already been gerrymandered beyond belief. All right. Some of these other states like New York have been gerrymandered. California's been gerrymandered too, but they think they can gerrymander it more.
I know.
Yeah. But this is where you are, right? This is what this is. But the bigger issue is the census. People don't talk about the census enough and the reason that the census is important. So I want to just tap into one of his sound bites on what he says about the U.S. Census and why the census matters. And then what it was taken under the Biden administration, it was taken in a way that too ended up being political, and it ended up changing the balance of power. And I think you're going to see the Trump administration try to do something about that as well. But this is the census, and this is what J.D. Vance has to say about it.
Fewer House seats than we should have. One, if the Democrats hadn't aggressively gerrymandered, and two, if illegal aliens weren't counted in the census for purposes of apportioning congressional seats. The best estimates I've seen is that in California, for example, has 5 additional congressional seats than it should have because they count illegal aliens for the purpose of apportioning representatives. Meanwhile, Ohio, my home state, lost a representative. We're literally losing representatives for American citizens in order to give congressional representation to illegal aliens. Republicans are trying to balance out the scales a little bit for basic fairness and for the integrity of our democracy, which the president cares about as much as anybody in the country.
Okay, interesting stuff. So I want to explain this just a little bit. So what he's talking about there is the fact that when you take a census, what you do is gather the total number of people. They don't distinguish between people that are here legally and people that are here illegally in a census. All right. Now they want to change whether they should do that or not. That's definitely where the Trump administration is, and it makes sense. But what they do basically is they say, okay, California has X number of people, so you get a congressional seat for every roughly 600,000 people that you have in your state. That's how it works. Okay, so if you go and flood a state with people legal or illegal, they get more seats. Even though, so you got a state like California, which is losing population like crazy.
It's bleeding people. They're losing so many voters and people, business owners are flooding and leaving the state.
Right,
so.
It's the number one egress state, right?
Right.
So they continue to grow, and that's why. And so what Vance is saying is basically you should count citizens. You don't need to count non-citizens, basically. And so that very much makes sense. But at the end of the day, this isn't saying all these people are voting. This is saying basically the way they apportion congressional seats is determined by this. So there is a difference there. So and Vance isn't saying they're all voting. Okay, they're not. But at least not in massive numbers, although there's plenty of debate about that too. So we don't need to get into that. But here's what's without question. They are being counted in the census. And so because they're being counted in the census and every 600 people gets a congressional seat, California has more congressional seats than they should, given the number of actual Americans that are in that state.
Right.
And so that's what they're trying to deal with, and they're going to have to deal with it. And I'll tell you, I think what we're headed for here is a Royal Rumble between J.D. Vance and Gavin Newsom.
Well, that is that's terrifying to me, because I thought, first of all, I think Newsom is a one trick slick pony. I mean, that's how I feel about the guy. He's always like, he feels like a used car salesman to me whenever I've heard him speak. He just comes off to me like, I mean, I don't know. He just feels very like he's doing his podcast and talking about himself all the time. Like, I just feel like it's weird. And he's trying to pose himself as a centrist. Well, obviously, in hopes that he's going to run for governor.
I don't think he's
president.
trying to be a centrist now. Now I think he's adjusted that. I think he did that a little bit with the Charlie Kirk stuff.
Of course he did. He did like the Charlie Kirk. I mean, he's having all these people on his podcast. Meanwhile, you got people losing their houses to fire, and he's closed off water supply. I mean, it's just like, I just feel like
no, hold on. You're getting into the record. I'm not talking about that. Okay,
I'm so sorry.
No, I know.
Heaven forbid you look at the guy's record.
I completely agree with you.
You have businesses leaving his state because of the way he's running his operation. You have the highest taxes.
Okay, hold on though. Stop jumping the gun.
Sorry.
Stop jumping the gun. That is not the story we're talking about right now. This is the story we're talking about. To fight Trump, Gavin Newsom acts more like him.
How so?
Gavin, he has been tweeting out stuff in caps. He's been insulting people. He's been absolutely trying to mimic Trump. Okay? So I want to talk about this because it's an important fact. It's an interesting thing. And to me, and I think what we've seen in this country over the past, 5 to 7 years, since really Trump came on the scene, is authenticity is king. Be who you are. Don't apologize for it. Stand up for what you believe in and let the chips fall where they may. And that usually is a better thing for you politically, okay? But this is completely the opposite. This is a guy going, I'm going to mimic my opponent, or a guy I view as my opponent, my political opponent, sort of. I mean, they won't be on the same ballot together, but you know what I mean? I mean, so I'm going to mimic this guy, and let's see how this goes. Now, I think what's interesting here is it is working. It is absolutely working. Now, I'm not telling you it's going to work in a general election. And don't accuse me of saying, I know what his history is with crime in California, the incompetence of what happened with the fires, the issues with the homelessness, the issues with a state that has been absolutely collapsing from its biggest cities to its smallest towns. There's no doubt. He has a terrible record. I'm not getting into all that. I'm just saying his approach right now seems to be working. Well, we actually.
I don't really know, but we'll throw it to Harry Eaton at CNN, and he can.
Harry Eaton.
Harry, I can never say this guy's name. I'm just going to say Harry from now on.
H.
Harry from CNN, okay, because he's got the latest data. So let's listen to him.
I absolutely think it's showing signs of working, and let's take a look at the voters who know Gavin Newsom best. Those voters out in California, those California Democrats. California Democrats and Newsom for governor. You go back to 2023, just 35% wanted him to run for president. Look at the percentage now who are excited for a run for president for Gavin Newsom. What is that? That's a 40-point climb. My goodness gracious, a rising tide of support for Gavin Newsom. Remember, back in 2023, the majority of Democrats did not want Joe Biden to run for another term, but California Democrats in Gavin Newsom's home state did not want him to run either. And now 75% are excited for him to run. And more than that, he's getting a higher percentage of the vote than Kamala Harris in her home state. He is beating the former vice president, who, of course, was the Democratic nominee in 2024.
Okay. My argument would be this.
Yeah.
Who else is actually out there that's getting any major league attention? AOC, Kamala thinking about running again? I mean, really, if that is it, I think they're grappling. They know that Kamala can't win because, I mean, I think that's just what she has shown, that she got buried alive on that vote. So I think they're like, okay, well, that's a loser vote for us.
Yep.
AOC, give me a break. I mean, I think they don't, I just think Gavin Newsom is the most in the public eye, putting himself out there constantly. That's what this is about. I don't think this is like, hey, I think this guy's qualified to be president. I think they're saying, we don't like Trump. This is the only shot we got right now. So we're going to throw, I think if somebody else steps in, that's an actual, better choice for the Democratic nominee, that his numbers will drop.
Okay, that's fine. But I think what this gets down to is Democrats are dying for someone to stand up and fight. And that's what he's doing. He is absolutely letting it rip. Okay. Now, I think in the long term, it will not help him in a general election. I think trying to mimic another candidate, trying to be that person, I think it doesn't work. Okay. I don't think it's going to work. But I do think right now, in this moment, Democrats look at him and say, at least somebody's trying to fight from their perspective. Right? They're looking at it going, oh, and we look at it and go, oh my gosh, come on, guy. Okay. But it's interesting. And I think one other interesting point on this, and that is that how does this play when you talk about how things shake out in potentially in the presidential race and where he stacks with the other candidates? Because about a month ago, okay, he was doing that little centrist thing, right? He's I talked to Charlie Kirk, he'll talk to Steve Bannon, and then he'll go and he may say, there probably shouldn't be men and women's sports. For him, that was like a big thing, right? And he does these things, and he's kind of in that pack where you get 10%, right, with everybody else. Well, guess what? Now that he's gone this route, when you do stack him against the AOCs of the world, as you mentioned, things have changed.
Does what we're seeing in California translate nationally? Chance of being the 2028 Democratic nominee, according to the prediction markets. Back on June 1st, before all this strategy, before all this confrontation with Donald Trump, you saw Gavin Newsom 11%, AOC at 10%, Buttigieg at 8%. Look at where Gavin Newsom has shot up to now, 27%. Now is the clear front runner, not at 50% plus, but still the clear front runner, at least according to the prediction markets. What we're seeing in California isn't staying in California, at least at this particular point.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and say I just think it's because nobody else has come out yet. Like really a major front runner,
well, no, there is no major front. Who is that person?
Well, I don't know. Like, what about what's her name from Michigan, the governor?
Oh, Whitmer.
Yeah, would she be somebody that would run again?
So here's a really good point. So I was having a conversation with a friend of mine a couple of days ago, and I told him, I said, Newsom Vance will be a close race. It will be, because as bad as Newsom's record is, he at least can defend it in a slickery way, right?
Because he's a car salesman,
right. But he will defend it in a more effective way. As bad as his record is, he's going to be maddening because he's going to be at least a decent defender of his own horrendous positions. He is. But here's the thing that a friend of mine brought up as we were chatting. He said, it's not about that. It's not about California and New York or anything. He goes, it's about Michigan, it's about Wisconsin, and it's about Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
You think you go to those states and the slickery Newsom, it works out for him? And that's a pretty good point. It's a pretty good point because Vance, I think, is a much better candidate in those states because Vance is a populist. He is. He's kind of a union guy populist. Yeah. And so I think he makes a good point. It's very possible then that gets to your point on Whitmer. Who would be better in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania? Gretchen Whitmer would be better than him.
Oh, and speaking of that, what about Pennsylvania governor?
Yeah, exactly right. But now that gets to a different point, which is will they nominate him and everything else?
And they won't.
Or Wes Moore. Like you've got other people. Okay, there are other people, but it just right now Newsom is the guy because of what he's done.
I'm going to just go ahead and say I think he's going to fizzle down. I just don't think that in 3.5 years or even 2.5 years. I think you're going to see the truth of him kind of bubbling up. I think you can only be phony for so long. And I think that people will see through that. I think what you're saying is authenticity does matter. And I think the painful lesson that we learned with Biden is they tried to use this like smoke and mirrors for everybody and say, hey, this doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. He's fine. He's great. They lied to the American public so badly. I don't think he's interested in some walking phony. Given I think it could be a very different situation again if you had Trump back on the ballot, which you won't this time.
Right.
So I just think Vance isn't Trump. He's not. And I just think, they're going to try to push him into that.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the opposing side is going to say he's Trump 2.0 or whatever.
As they should. That's whatever any competent political party would do.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's not.
But he's not. He's not Trump. Well, and so I just think it's going to be an interesting dynamic, and I think we'll see more people coming out.
Okay. But by the way, I've got a little piece of breaking news as we're doing the show.
Yeah.
My friend Vince Torres, the incomparable Vince Torres, we've had him on the show.
Yeah.
We'll have him again. He's fantastic. He just tweets me a new Rasmussen Reports poll. poll. We were talking about the census,
Yes.
okay? And he just sends this. And it's like Vince is not listening to what we're doing right now.
Yeah,
so I don't really know
can hear us. We're not going live. We're not live,
Yeah,
people.
we do this and then we put it up right after we do it, but Vince has no idea what we're doing.
Right.
But he sends this. Rasmussen reports, he says, Sunday afternoon crosstabs, a new citizens-only census. In other words, they polled if the American people support just counting American citizens in the census, and should we do it right away? Should we, you usually do it every 10 years, right?
But should we redo
say,
it?
wait a minute, this was so bad, what happened in 2020, and big errors found, that we got to change it. So it says this, 36% of people strongly approve of a new census right now, okay? 21% somewhat approve. So that's 57% of people, okay? 10% somewhat disapprove, 24% strongly disapprove. Okay, so 57%, a massive majority of Americans say, do it again now, okay? Now, here's the other thing. Should it count illegal immigrants, okay? 52% say no.
Yeah.
36% say yes.
mean,
And
why-
11% are not sure.
Wow.
So that's super interesting. So that is exactly what the Vance stuff gets to,
Right.
that we
Is
just
what
talked
we-
about.
And I guess we don't know exactly what goes into all of that. Like, what will redoing the census actually look like, as far as, how much money does it cost? How much effort goes into it? How long does it take?
Does
What's
the
that
money
process?
matter?
No, not in my opinion. I think that it should absolutely be redone, but I just feel like, it'd be interesting to see what are our numbers here in New Mexico. I think would be so
I
fascinating.
don't think I don't think we have a massive illegal
No,
population.
I actually agree with you. They
Yeah,
leave our
I
state
don't-
because there's no work here. But anyway, so we'll just cover that another day. No, I think it would be fascinating as a study is to see what changes in what state if they
Right.
do that, if they end
Right.
up doing that. And then, I don't know. That's kind of an interesting.
Well, yeah. it
Thank
would
you,
make-
Vince, for breaking news.
Yeah,
We
no, it's
appreciate
super
it.
interesting. So anyway, that's kind of funny to me that he nailed that quickly. But all right, so let's talk about something else here. And again, this is something we constantly talk about. The 2026, for people who think Republicans are going to roll in 2026, even though voter trends are heading in their direction, I don't think that's happening. Okay. And here's another story, came in the Wall Street Journal. It said Hispanic voters in Texas are starting to turn on Trump. Okay. Now, the reason for this is not immigration enforcement. The reason for this is not law enforcement in general or the National Guard or Russia or any of those things. It is simply the economy.
It says here, but there are signs Hispanic voters in Texas and nationally are souring on Trump, which makes the party's redistricting strategy a risk ahead of the consequential midterm elections. The rightward shift in the region, which began in 2020, came largely in response to economic factors, especially the cost of food and goods. Now voters say they are feeling the pinch of those things more than ever. So it goes back to this, energy prices, our interest rates, all of that. It says an April poll by Notice.
Yeah.
U.S., a nonpartisan Hispanic advocacy organization, measured the support of Trump's first 100 days among Hispanic voters. They found 61% of respondents in Texas and 59% nationally disapproved of his performance. The group overwhelmingly ranked cost of living and the economy as the most important issues, and a majority of Texas respondents said they believe current policies will make them worse off next year.
Okay, so some of that gets back to the media coverage of the tariffs, right? Oh, prices are going up, when that has not happened in a significant way. So that's one thing he's dealing with. But this is what we said from the very beginning, that the economy is an issue here. Prices are an issue. And no, Trump didn't do this. He didn't push prices up. He didn't. He wasn't president when it all happened. And Biden was. And now interest rates are sky high because of trying to respond to that. Now, they've been slow to bring the interest rates back down. But we keep talking about the fact that Trump says over and over again, you got to cut interest rates. They got to continue to bring down the price of energy. They have to bring down prices. And it's really hard to bring prices down once they've already gone up. So these things are really difficult. This is a tough thing. So that's why when you look at candidates that are running in 2026, this is what you're going to be up against. You're up against serious headwinds. And it's not that it's Trump's fault that the prices are where they are. It's not. But he's still got to wear it now. It's his economy now. Now, if the roles were reversed and Trump had pushed prices way up because of terrible spending decisions like Biden did, the media would be making excuses for Biden. In other words, if Biden came in behind Trump, and had to deal with these high prices.
If these roles were reversed.
Oh, these roles. Yeah, you're right. Exactly the way to say it. Thank you. If the roles were reversed right now, there would be, well, this is not Biden's fault. I mean, what is Biden supposed to do? The media would keep drumming that home, and people would eventually hear that enough to be like, yeah, it's not his fault. It's the other guy's fault. Well, the media is not going to do any favors for Trump.
No,
they're not going to come out and say
it's going to be Trump's fault.
Yeah.
And I also think it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I hate to say it like this, but I wonder how many businesses will keep prices high and then blame it on tariffs without it actually being a tariff issue. I don't even know if you could get away with that, but I am curious because you hear that excuse. Like I even heard that in line. I was at a grocery store and a woman was saying how high her food was or whatever, something that she was buying, and the clerk was like, "Yeah, it's been that high for a while," and the woman said, "Oh, it's because of the tariffs." And I just it literally took everything in me to say the tariffs aren't imposed yet. Because this was like, 3 months ago. And I was like, this has zero to do with tariffs. But I didn't say anything. I didn't. I wanted to. It about killed me not to.
But the facts remain, which is if you're a voter and you're dealing with these prices, telling you that it's not Trump's fault doesn't matter.
Right. It's
you
perception.
Don't care. Yeah, and you don't care.
Right.
You're like, bring them down. Do something here.
And
so
meanwhile,
that's hard.
he is fighting for that inflation to go down. I mean, he is in a fight for those interest rates to come down.
Well, there's no question the interest rates. I mean, and now Powell did indicate that they probably will cut interest rates in September.
Let's just see how much and make sure they count.
Well, no, it's interesting, but just one other quick little picture here.
Yeah, because I love a good Krispy Kreme.
I know you do. But I mean, you look at these prices.
I'm not paying that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no. A single donut, $2.59.
Yeah.
It's flour and water and maybe a little sugar.
It's nuts in your own 12-pack. That's the one where you're like, you go get some kids in a classroom or whatever.
Trust
you got a
me,
birthday
I know
or whatever.
This is what I do.
You got a birthday, you got 30 kids in the classroom.
This is exactly my case. I do birthdays. I know my kids are older, but I celebrate birthdays in our class every month, just because it's kind of a fun thing that I do in my classroom to build like unity. And I'm telling you, these kids want donuts. They want the gourmet cookie. I won't name the brand because I don't want to get in trouble. But they want these high-end stuff, and it's flour and sugar, and it is astronomically expensive. I will drop about $70 a month in birthday treats easily.
Well, and if you look at this, if you were to go do your class of 30, all right, for example, you'd spend $60 to give them all a donut.
Yeah, and that's before tax, honey.
Unreal.
Let's not forget all the glorious taxes.
No, you're right about that.
I budget about $70 for birthday treats a month in my classroom.
Okay.
So it's not cheap
crazy.
anymore.
No.
Back in the day when our moms used to make us cupcakes or whatever.
Yeah, right. I mean, exactly.
If I could bake, I would just make them. But let's be honest, nobody wants me baking.
You're terrible.
Okay.
You're terrible. One other thing. So if you look at this,
Thanks, honey. Thank you.
You look at what we just said, and it's like, oh my gosh, okay, Trump's in trouble, Republicans are in trouble. No, I think what we're going to see here, and we keep saying it, we're going to see a stalemate in 2026. You're going to see not much change. And the reason why is because despite people looking at the economy and saying, this is not great, it's got to be better, Trump's better, I'm mad at Trump for this, okay? So how do you feel about the Democrats? Well, on all places that they say this, I would say this is a bit of a shock, but ABC News on their Sunday morning show decided to lay out where we could be at and why when you look at these big swings in Congress, and we've had them, Obama's had them, Trump saw it in 2018, you're not likely to see that this time around, and you'll learn why in this soundbite.
A very, very rough midterm election, particularly when it comes to the House. Barack Obama lost 63 seats.
Trump lost 40.
He knows
lost 40.
Yeah.
Remember how angry he was the day after that midterm? I mean, that changed his presidency. He doesn't want it to happen again. But Democrats are facing some serious headwinds as well.
Yeah, and this is just a stunning analysis that the New York Times has out in the last couple of days. You've seen nationwide a drop in Democratic registration numbers. And in the battleground states, it's just as stark. Look at this. The share of registered Democrats down almost 4 points in Arizona just since 2020. Nevada, more than 8 points. North Carolina, Pennsylvania. All of these big battlegrounds have lost Democrats in large numbers, again, just this decade. So that just tells you how tough it's going to be for Democrats to fight their way back when it comes to control of Congress or potentially the presidency down the road. It's hard to create a wave if voters are fleeing your party.
Extraordinary.
Exactly
Democrats
right,
have lost more than 2 million registered voters just in the past 4 years, and Republicans have gained. Rick, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. So it's just crazy. I mean, it really is. And when you look at those numbers and you say, holy cow, right? That's why you're not going to see a wave election. It is not going to happen.
Either way, right?
Yes, because it's tough. Trump being in a midterm, it's just tough. It's the way it is. And on the same token, Democrats are hemorrhaging voters. And by the way, it's not just those states, it's New Mexico. Okay, look right here. Just a little graph. I'm just a simple meteorologist, but I made a little graph.
Okay, nice work.
Okay,
Nicely
all
done.
right. So you go back to 2014. Democrats had a 16-point registration advantage, meaning 16% more Democrats in the state than Republicans. So if everybody voted their party, Democrats win by 16. Okay, and then to give you an idea, when we ran, it was about 14. Okay, and then now it's down to 9.9.
That's great.
That
yeah, there's definitely some,
right?
It's
And
definitely,
the reason,
it's still tough though. And I think that's one thing I want to make sure you address is that, we keep getting lots of messages saying who are our candidates for the midterms, who's, running for any sort of House seat, who's running for governor. Why is it so quiet? I think it's very crystal clear to those of us that have been in this before. It's a midterm election with Trump in office and in New Mexico with the Democrats having a 9-point advantage. It's still too tricky. It's still a very, I'll let you address this more. You're much more familiar with this, but it's still just a very tough race to get into in a Trump midterm with them having at least a 9 to 10-point advantage still.
Right, and I think I think it's anytime you have these midterms, it's tricky. Right, it really is. Whichever party's in power, you think about those things, and so at this point, I think it's part of the reason you haven't seen anyone announce for governor. Really, at this point, I think somebody will. I think there'll be good candidates, and it'll be an interesting race, but it's going to be tough. It's really going to be tough, and so, but you never know either. You never know.
There is still a lot of time. I mean, as a reminder. Mark didn't get into the governor's race last time until the October before the primary. So it's coming around the bend here for whoever's going to announce. But it's not like people, it will just be interesting. I don't think this is going to stay quiet for long.
Well, even that, and what I mean by tough is just and you don't know is because someone could get in and the circumstances could work out perfectly. This is the same. I say this every single time to every candidate. It's my standard advice. It is be prepared to have your success or failure determined by things that are completely out of your control. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it played out for us. We didn't have any control of the things that caused us to lose. We just didn't. And now, did we run the perfect race? No, but we ran a pretty dang good
race. Yeah, I would say, yeah.
And so, and I'm proud of that. But it happens, right? I mean, and people make choices. I totally live with that. But you just have to be able to understand the fact that as you step into these things, your success or failure is now, again, this isn't always the case. There are plenty of people that run garbage races.
Right.
There are. But if you're really good, your success or failure is likely not going to be based on you. So those are tough things. You have to be able to accept that. And it's interesting stuff, no doubt. So we'll see how it shakes out.
I also think that these district races, the House races in particular, that we get people write us all the time about that. I think people really need to understand how those districts have been gerrymandered. And they really have. And so it's like, are you going to go in there and raise enough money and be able to take somebody out when you don't have the percentage of voters in those districts that you need to win those districts?
Yep.
Like, people don't understand all that, Mark. They just think this person's driving us crazy. She's making terrible decisions in D.C. Yes, she is. But will there be enough voters to vote in favor for change? And that is something statistically matters. You have to have the stats on your side to be able to win and to be able to raise enough money to win. So.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're exactly right. So just to give you an idea, that CD1 where Stansbury is currently the office holder, that's probably a plus 15 district, really, the way it votes right now.
For Dems.
For Dems, yeah.
Right, and I don't think a lot of our conservatives and even Democrats who are writing us saying, we need change. We don't want her in there. Nor do we. But you do have to understand the science and the data behind those districts. And I think that is something that I had no idea about until Mark ran.
But I will say that there has to be some, tidal wave of pushback in certain areas of certain districts that have to come back to where they've historically been. And I don't know if they will. Sometimes things change, like the Albuquerque Heights have gone really, really far left. So that's tough. It's tough when you're making the choice on, are you going to run and, what are you going to do? And you look at the numbers and you say, holy cow, places where we used to have swing districts around, say, Candelaria and Tramway and things like that, where you'd have some swing districts in there. They're not swing districts anymore. They're just not.
Yeah.
And so those are tough things. But anyway, okay, so we're off the election stuff, but it's interesting. So the reason we present you all this stuff is just to show you it's a muddled picture. It's going to be tricky, and I wouldn't look for a wave. But whenever we get information, we want to bring it to you and give you as much as we can so you're as informed as possible on all this stuff. So anybody who tells you Republicans are going to roll, I think they're crazy. And anybody who tells you that Democrats are going to sweep in and take the Senate and roll in the House and have big majorities, nope. That's not happening either.
No,
the data just disagrees with both of those hypothesis at this point.
And I would just say that when people are like, well, what can we do? I think getting more people to register as Republicans in our state is dire. Like, I think that that's going to be it's a huge issue, and it will remain an issue to get younger people also to get more active and get more involved in the party. I feel very passionate about that. I think that's very important to do. Okay, let's move on. I'm off my soapbox on that one. Cracker Barrel, kind of an interesting story here that's kind of come out this week. New York Post took a different turn on this whole Cracker Barrel remarketing, making their logo.
Yeah, Charlie Gasparino did this.
Made a little change. It says Cracker Barrel's marketing fiasco shows investors are making woke a massive risk factor. So basically the breakdown of this, it says here, if the Cracker Barrel market puke has anything to teach Wall Street, it's that investors who are deciding where to put their money must add corporate wokeness to their menu of risks to digest. In fact, making woke an investing risk factor in some cases is important, as the direction of interest rates and inflation seems so obvious that I hesitated to even write this column. Recall Bud Light's Dylan Mulvaney fiasco, or Target's CEO Brian Cornell's recent exit following his ill-fated obsession with DEI. Okay, so is going woke hurting these brands on Wall Street? And basically this writer is saying, yes, it kind of is. Well, it's not mainstream. There are some savvy Wall Street types adding woke risk to their models. They're just not using that exact terminology. Bob Sloan, founder of the data and analytics firm S3 Partners, is among them. For weeks, he's been watching Cracker Barrel stock for an unconventional catalyst that could send it higher or lower. So again, they're trying to say, is this going to be a short term or long term, whatever, those, playing the Wall Street game. What caught Sloan's eye a few weeks ago is what S3 specializes in, looking at investor sentiment around a stock. That is, the degree to which investors believe in the stock and were active longs. They might buy more under the right conditions, for example. And those who were bearish, so-called active shorts, betting against it and then willing to double down on their bets. Sloan noticed the active long and short sentiment was pretty evenly split. And, quote, that means all it takes is some event to move shares significantly in either direction, he tells me. So what is that? Well, the catalyst, of course, was this new logo, which was perceived as woke overtones. Gone was Uncle Herschel and his barrel on that logo. Remaining was the company name against its standard yellow background. What's the lesson they've kind of are learning here? They said that, well, the internet erupted. The stock on Thursday lost nearly $100 million in market value. And so basically what this guy is saying, the Sloan guy that follows these stocks, he's saying, quote, the moral of the story is if you're going to do a rebranding of this type with long and short sentiment so evenly split, you should wait. But as outlined in my book, this is the writer again, he wrote a book called Go Woke, Go Broke. He says waiting is often not an option. For all the customer backlash against woke image making, it remains a staple in marketing departments looking to appeal to new audiences, including those that don't exist. So, I mean, his takeaway obviously is these guys are trying to make money on the stock market regardless of if a company wins or loses, right? Like they're playing both sides of the fence on that, which I don't know anything about the stock market really when it comes to that. But I have watched movies. I did watch, Wall Street and all that stuff.
No, that's critical. That is critical. No, it's an interesting point in one that, so this whole apparently behind the scenes, Cracker Barrel has definitely been much more pushing the DEI stuff than is, I think, publicly known. Okay, so there's a lot of people out there talking about this. We're not going to get into the specific examples, but I think overall here, what's interesting is you have a very down-home kind of conservative brand. It really is. And the question is, does your leadership match that conservative brand? Now, when you look at the actual logo. I don't know. Everybody's getting all fired up because Uncle Herschel's not there in the logo anymore. I get it. I understand. I mean, there are a lot of different logos that change over time. Was this some affront to their customer? I don't know. But I do think there is some portion of this where you have a company here and you see it the same way all the time, which is their leadership doesn't match their customer. They don't understand the customer. They don't get them. And if they think that they're going to be able to replace their current customer, which they don't like as much as a potential other customer, or exactly what you just said in the article, a customer that isn't even there, I think that's craziness. But what's interesting about it is when you do genuinely look at where people sit with your stock, and if you're sitting dead even, right? If you don't have a bunch of people that are long on your stock, and meaning long, meaning they're in with you, right? And they're in for the positive results with you. If you've got a lot of people with a long position in your stock, well, you've got some more headroom there to mess around. But obviously, Cracker Barrel didn't. Now, Cracker Barrel probably is not in huge trouble, I wouldn't think, but I don't know at this point. So,
well, I would just say that I was just literally having this conversation with my friend Debbie this past week about these products that decide to change either their image, their logo, or their spokespeople, thinking that they're going to address a new market. And we're sitting here because we both have background in marketing, right? We both have decades of working in marketing. We're like, what are these clowns thinking? Like, why would they come in and try to shift something to like get somebody that they think might be more appealing? For instance, there is a pretty controversial spokesperson coming in for a makeup line, and this makeup line appeals to young girls, right? That's kind of their target market. Well, TikTok took off, and basically these girls are furious about this new spokesperson that's coming in for this. Well, that's their market. That's their person that's going to buy these products are these young high school and college age girls. Wake up and realize, like, be careful who you pick to be your spokesperson, or you think that, this Target CEO, holy cow, who knows where that guy's going to land, right? Because those were some tragic decisions that he made for the Target brand that had massive impacts, not understanding the mom market as much at Target. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, as somebody who has marketing background, just be careful why you rebrand things, and be careful of the perception. And you have your small little world as a marketing person inside one of these corporate offices, and you're not really in touch with the current customer that still still incredibly valuable.
It's the number one sin of a bad marketing department, which is not knowing your customer or not respecting them or not liking them. Like they pay your bill, you love them. You should love them, and you should know them to their core. I don't care what it is. It could be absolutely the other way. It could be Whole Foods, and you're like, hey, you better know your customer, right? Your customer isn't, a rancher down the road. That's likely not your customer at Whole Foods. Just like your customer at Cracker Barrel is not likely to be somebody who, is on the far left. Like, that's just not what that brand is. Everybody knows that. Not that you don't have some of those people that cross over, but in general, know where your bread is buttered.
I think this is shaken up a lot of industry that I've seen personally. I have friends that work in different brands throughout the country, and they are seeing, like, when they bring in a new CEO who thinks, oh, they've got what it takes to figure this out. I won't name the actual brand here, but it was an NFL cheerleading program. They brought in somebody new to be in charge of marketing for that, and wanted to scrap the calendar. And I remember I told you this, right? They wanted to scrap the cheerleading calendar because they thought, oh, this is too sexist. People don't want this anymore. Meanwhile, the people that I know work on that calendar and try to make it still a really, like, nice calendar. It sells. People buy it, mainly men who buy it, and young men buy it, right?
Who actually are the fans of these teams.
Correct.
Or at least the biggest segment.
You have this new head of marketing comes in and says, oh, it's sexist, we're going to get rid of it. Well, it's a massive fundraiser for this organization. So it was interesting to see the changes that these people try to make without understanding. Like, come in, get to know your customer base before you start making all these changes. I just don't understand how anybody hires a marketing exec to come in and say, hey, you spend a year at our company getting to know the quality of our customer base, and then you figure out your strategy.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
It's not rocket science.
All right.
Sorry,
I want to get to CBS News. Okay. And that is because CBS has been bought by Skydance. Okay. And this is David Ellison, son of Larry Ellison. And I don't think you're talking about the Murdochs here, okay? They're not people that we're not about to tell you that CBS News is going to become Fox News. It's not. Okay, it's not at all. But I do think you may see CBS try to make a subtle shift back toward sort of a equilibrium that has not existed in that organization for more than 20 years.
What is Gayle King going to do with that? I mean, holy cow.
That's a really good question.
Gayle King's not going to have anything to say anymore.
Well, it was interesting, right? So you listen. So what you're starting to see here, and Tony DeCopel is the quote we're going to show you right here. Tony, on a couple of different occasions recently, has sort of been a voice of reason on the CBS morning show. He has, but you listen to him, you're like, yeah, makes sense. And Tony's not some activist. Tony isn't pushing anything or anything else, but he talked about the Smithsonian. And he talked about what the Trump administration is trying to do with the Smithsonian. And he did it in a way that you're going to listen to it and be like, yeah, makes sense. It makes sense. And so he got some pushback. I don't have all of it, but Gayle King was trying to push back. The other guy on set eventually tried to push back a little bit and everything else. But Tony basically makes kind of an interesting point here. And I think you're going to start to see more and more the Tony DeCopels of the world be able to say, wait a minute, what about this? And that's all you're looking for. You're looking for both sides to get their say. And I do think there's a piece of the market for a large major network to say, we're not going to continually try to push one side because we know they've been doing that forever. And it does not serve the country well. So here's Tony DeCopel on Trump trying to have some influence over the Smithsonian and how America should be proud of who we are. And when we have the Smithsonian presenting things to people, there's nothing wrong with presenting both the parts of it that we're not necessarily proud of, but also understanding there's plenty to be proud of.
Of reverence. The country's not above critique, but we shouldn't look at our history with contempt either. And I think there is some room for a correction back toward the middle. And in fact, Lonnie Bunch, who heads the Smithsonian, and Donald Trump and his administration,
Amazing job.
In a letter there, they're
Gayle.
saying quite the same things. The mission of the Smithsonian is to forge a shared history, a shared future, not just context, but hope, to lead the country and communities together. That's essentially the same language that Donald Trump is offering here. And I do think there's room to say, in American history, what you are describing, that process of a journey toward greatness is very real. And we all have something to be incredibly proud of. And you talk about overseas. I think the world and its people, if you ask someone, is the world and its people better off because of the existence of America and its people? To me, the answer is unquestionably yes. And I think people walk into the Smithsonian, when they walk out of it, they should get some sense of that.
Yeah.
Heck yes, Tony DeCopel.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not crazy. It isn't, don't talk about, the very real things we've done as a country, which are problematic. But by and large, we're a force for good in the world. There's nothing wrong with saying that.
Right. And maybe, for your Title IX exhibit, just make it correct. That's all we're going to say. We covered that one last show.
But I would just tell you, I think Tony doing this is an indication of what's happening, I hope, at CBS. And maybe that's wishful thinking. Maybe you watch Margaret Brennan and you roll your eyes and I do and just kind of say it's crazy.
Thanks,
but I do think that is very, very promising. I really do. I think what he said was great, made a lot of sense. And I hope that CBS starts to move in a direction of saying, look, our job is to hold everybody accountable, make everybody uncomfortable, and stop pushing an agenda, one side or the other. And it's been one-sided at CBS for decades. Back Dan Rather was one-sided. I mean, it's been one-sided for a long, long time. Stop doing that.
Well, as they believe viewers and ratings start to plummet, they have to make some changes. So, okay, Southwest Airlines thinking about expansion overseas. So maybe some European.
Yes, European. Well, they're the number one carrier out of the Sunport. So
right.
The question is, where do you want to see them go? They are eyeing going to Europe because they fly the 737 MAX, which I think can go a max of like 3,700 miles, something like that. So again, you couldn't go direct out of Albuquerque or Phoenix overseas, but you could go to New York or whatever, and then New York to, say, London, or New York to, whatever, where Ireland or wherever. Any interest in that? I thought this was great because we fly Southwest.
We do fly Southwest. I'm just going to say this, though. Not that I've been to Europe a lot, because I haven't. But the times I have flown, I've flown in a plane that is more accommodating than Southwest, like bigger. Yeah. So bigger seat arrangement. You have like leg room. So I can't imagine like the planes that we say take to Denver or to DC or wherever we're flying or Houston. I hope it's a different plane than that.
Well,
That's
it's
going
going to be a
because-
737 MAX. Like, that's what it's going to be.
They better take some seats out to make some room for leg room, because when you're flying, 8, 10, 12-hour flights, being cramped up in those planes, to me, I'm like, oh gosh, I maybe I'm old.
No. I think it will be one of those deals where they probably start off with, that roughly
one
6
flight
to
London.
like that roughly New York to London, 6 hours or 5 hours, somewhere in there, somewhere in some of those, Western Europe, destinations that won't take you 10 hours to get to.
But even basic service on some of the other carriers going to international, you get perks. Like there are, you're given food, you're given more leg room without having to upgrade to like a business A class or a first class, right? If Southwest wants to be serious about this, I think you have to make your base. I mean, they only offer basic service, right?
Yeah.
So you have to step it up a little bit if you want to compete with, say, JetBlue or United or some of those guys.
I don't know that you do, but you'll have to beat them on price, right? You'll have to beat them on price, and so we'll see if it shakes out.
All right, let's move on.
All
Let's
right,
move on.
All right, are you ready for this?
Well, yeah. I mean, are you ready for this? Maybe we should have recorded you doing a bench press, although I don't allow you to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But we won't tell people why. But anyway, still, you, or maybe we should have recorded me doing a bench press.
It'd be close. I bet you may be able to do this. So I will say, this is interesting.
And I am not that strong.
This is a bigger issue. So Zohran Mamdani goes to like a fitness day in New York City. They do it all the time, every year. And there are different like workout stations and things like that. All good stuff. And as a candidate, you go in and people ask you to do stuff all the time. And so you got to be a little selective though, because if you know that it's not your bag, I don't recommend it. It's the old Michael Dukakis riding in the tank situation, right? It's the guy who hops on a horse. I remember we had a candidate in the Senate race that I ran against, Gavin, and he got on a horse and looked like he had no business being on the horse. And it's one of the things I've always said, like, I'm never getting on a horse for a campaign event. I'm just not doing it, okay? I'm not doing the Bregman. I'm not throwing the chaps on and going.
You're also not wearing a cow. I remember people just saying, we need to get Mark some cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And I'm like, no, we
That's
don't.
not what he
Like, have
does.
you ever looked at Mark's head? Number one, it's too big for a cowboy hat. But you had, lots of supporters that were like, can we buy him a cowboy hat? I'm like, please don't.
Yeah.
Because he will not be
I'll
authentically.
look like him in a costume.
Yeah, exactly.
So Zohran Mamdani goes to do a bench press. And just so you know, you're looking at about 125 here on the bench. He's got like 25s on each side.
Right.
Okay, so here he is in action, Zohran Mamdani.
Move up in the pole. This is how you move up in the pole. Yeah.
Okay, so there he is. He's got a spotter who looks like he's a pretty good sized dude, right? But there he is. And so Mamdani.
And his spotter never takes his hands off the bar.
Oh, no, he doesn't. So
never takes his hands off.
they're getting all set. So this is where you just got to have a campaign person who says, look,
This
we're
is
not
not
going to
his
do this.
thing.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and again, for anybody who lifts any semblance of weight, especially a guy like that, is like, it's not very much weight. And he's got to have this guy pulling it up for him. And so, look, just as a candidate.
Ella could bench press more than that, I think.
It's a tough deal. So
Yeah.
I will say that. So just again, in the future, any candidate, if you're not comfortable with it, it's not really that endearing to go get smoked at something like that. Just don't do it.
Yeah, don't
do it.
Don't try to fake it. That's the biggest thing.
I mean, or if you know this is coming, then go train a little bit and get yourself. I mean, because 120, really, Zohran,
I remember
seriously.
a candidate, I will not name names, but against you was like working a farm. And I was like putting hay in the back of a car or a truck or something. And you could just tell this person had never worked a farm a day in their life or a ranch or whatever.
Right.
I was like, please stop.
Yeah.
Please don't do this. You
Yeah.
look like a fool. And
Yeah.
it's just, anyway, don't
Yeah.
do it. Just
Yeah,
stay
absolutely.
who you are. I don't know who Bregman is. That's another thing. But we'll
no,
figure
but
out.
at least Bregman can ride a horse. Like it wasn't like,
True.
he wasn't like,
Yeah, no.
all over the place where he's like, oh my God, what is this thing? I'll
Yeah.
give him that.
Yeah.
And now he's in costume and everything else. I love the costume. But
it is costumes,
I give him credit for that. Like he can do that. Like this is a whole different deal. Like Donnie's never been inside a gym in his entire life.
And I think what's funny is like if somebody, I mean, you are a weightlifter, like you can lift, you're a very strong guy. You would never have said, yeah, let's go lift some weights for my campaign. That would have never happened.
No,
Like,
and I know I see RFK Jr. do that stuff. And
Well,
he's got the shirt off with the jeans on. And he's in good shape. He's in great shape.
I think he's also trying to run for health secretary. So I think that's a little different than the fact that he's trying to say, listen, I'm a beacon of health. This is what I'm trying to do. I don't know. I mean, and he's also trying to appeal to women and the women vote. Give me a break. That's what he's a Kennedy. That's what he's trying to do.
No, all right. I got it. Okay.
So I sent you this clip because you love your Sunday game day video, right?
Yes.
And you love your game cameras. My biggest fear are these creatures showing up anywhere near me, and especially this size. This came out of Durango. These are 3 massive mountain lions. Like, these belong in, like, I don't know.
Beautiful. I mean,
Africa. I don't know.
Africa.
I mean, I don't know. They're
mountain lions in
massive. Look how big these cats are.
Well, the mom is. That's the mom.
Okay,
right
yeah,
there,
I'm sorry. The babies, they're still.
They're getting there. They're getting there.
Yeah, and these 3 are just tooling around this guy's yard.
Yeah.
Right? So they're just filming these beautiful cats.
Yep.
Strolling around the yard in Durango. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where's your small dog?
Yep.
Where is your children?
Yep.
I'm sorry, mom, this mom, she could kill me if I go on a hike. She could jump out of a tree, and
she would carve you up like a Christmas turkey.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm like, if you see these cats anywhere near, I was like, oh my gosh, and I'm just like out watering my lavender. These people have lavender growing.
It's
I'm like,
it's a beautiful little spot.
beautiful
there,
land, but I'm like, I'm sure this person is indoors filming this because these cats are like,
no doubt,
you're not expecting this. So I'm just saying right now, no, I'm not interested in these cats coming anywhere near the spots in Angel Fire that we're working on right now. So, but they're pretty. No question. And then the little babies go after her, I think, right here.
They come in right here.
Yeah.
They come diving in right. Yeah, she gets it going across, and then there they go. So
it's no thanks. No thanks on that.
It is. They are stunning animals.
Another no thanks.
There they are. They're the 2 little guys.
Yeah, they're tiny. They're the size of Maverick or Husky.
Yeah. Well, he's actually laying right behind you right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and he's a good size. He's a 150?
Oh, gosh, no. He's not that heavy.
180?
No. Stop. Okay. All right. Sorry. One other visit. We, as we said, we're shooting a show up in the Northern Mountains that we'll have more on as we wrap it up and then bring you more details on it. But our photographer, John Beck, was inside the house, the rental house we're using up there, and this guy comes walking up.
Yeah,
and this was 3 days ago.
Holy cow. Speaking of 150 pounds, I mean, this bear, how big is this bear? He looks huge, and he's very comfortable up on the deck.
Oh, yeah. Just watch this, though. He thinks, see that? It's a little reflector. See the little red reflector there? Mm-hmm. Looks like a lollipop.
Yeah.
He's going to kind of grab that and be like, is this thing edible? Like, he's just checking around for some food, trying to see if there's anything. He looks like he's pretty healthy.
Well, yeah, he's healthy, all right. He's also a person that I don't want to contend with. Like, he's a little.
Here he is.
He's
like,
a little guy.
Is this food? And then he's like, oh, probably not.
No,
so,
nothing good there. Yeah,
Very
again,
cool.
Holy cow. Like, no. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it for us. We hope that you've enjoyed what we have brought you today. If you have, please tell your friends about our show. Please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. It means the world to us. And we can see comments when you like and subscribe. That's kind of how that works now, that algorithm. So please like and subscribe. Tell your friends about us. And if you want to sign up for our email, please do that at our website, which is nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com. Thanks so much, you guys, and have a great start to your week.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.
The No Doubt About It Podcast is a Choose Adventure Media production. See you next time on No Doubt About It.
There is no doubt about it.